Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the special Tesla Roadster version. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning. Welcome, everybody.
The picture behind us, again, AI generated. This time I asked for a 2008 Tesla Roadster, lightning green, in a tropical setting. And I got probably about a dozen variations before I got something that I was happy with. AI seems to be dumbing down these days. We hope that that resolves soon, but I tried to put a person into that picture. I figured a pretty girl in a bikini by the beach by a lightning green roadster would be appropriate. And what I ended up getting was a pretty girl with drooping eyes. So we left the girl out of this picture, but I'm sure those of you that love roadsters will be happy with just the lightning green that's there. And don't try to look for a charge port door because there is none.
No charge port door handles, a few other things that are kind of off on this one. But if you take a look at the picture holistically, it's a nice picture.
Totally. So what continues in the Roadster World News is a sell-off. Bargains abound. No one believes that any of this is permanent, but it is a trend that we have to deal with. The next one that's going to be a perplexing sale is on Bring a Trailer, just like Signature VIN 48 was. And this is signature number 56. It closes tomorrow. The auction ends tomorrow. And last time I checked, it was at $69,000. Now, just to give you some perspective, a Signature Roadster 3 years ago that we sold, VIN number 13, 894 miles, sold for $295,000. This Signature number 48 that sold last week, I expected to go to 130, 150, maybe 170. It sold for $78,000. So there is definitely a trend underway, and people ask continuously, what's the reason? Why are people selling? What's this huge sell-off all about? And even the magazines get involved, like Haggerty, and honestly, they get it wrong because it's speculation. And then the funny part is, one magazine posts some speculation as fact, and then a whole bunch of others regurgitate it and pick it up as fact, and the next thing you know, you have this trend out there.
Sure.
So what I did finally was, on the Facebook site, Tesla Roadster Owners Group, the question was asked, what's this sell-off all about? I'm going to read this to you because it took me some time to create this. It starts with a Signature 100 Tesla Roadster, VIN number 48, recently sold at Bring a Trailer auction for $78K, marking a shocking new low in valuations. Non-pedigreed roadsters were selling for $60,000 to $80,000, and I thought that was low. The sale left the roadster community in disbelief, as this highly coveted, limited edition collectible car, which had most deferred maintenance addressed, sold for significantly below the usual value for signature cars. A thrilled new owner, of course, emerges from this auction, but it has sparked discussions about the current glut in roadsters and their dropping prices. Our reply to a question asked about the reasons for this glut, which was posted on Bring a Trailer, was removed when I mentioned our own Roadster matchmaking service, trying to illustrate our deep involvement in understanding why owners might be selling, because we ask every owner or every seller, what is your reason for selling? Give us a backstory. People like these stories with the cars to make them a bit more personal.
Right.
So we've been collecting reasons for sales for 3 years. So on the group, they took it down, of course, which is of no surprise because technically we compete with them, even though our service is totally free, especially if it's totally free.
Well, especially if it's totally free, yeah.
So on the Gruber Motors website, we have this Roadster matchmaking section where owners can list their cars free. It's offered as a courtesy to help owners connect with potential buyers directly without any listing deadlines. That's another important concept. These auctions generally have a timeline attached. 7 days, I don't think, is enough to sell a car like this. But at 7 days, the auction closes, the gavel comes down, and whatever that price was reached is now what it's sold for. With our Roadster matchmaking site, the listings remain until the car sells. And we allow the sellers to talk directly to potential buyers. We get out of the way. We focus on facilitating connections, providing free technical support, and believe me, technical support is a large part of a Roadster sale. The auctions are ill-equipped to handle any of this. They don't know a R80 pack from a legacy pack. They don't know a signature car from a non-signature car. They don't know a 1.5 Roadster from a 2.0 Roadster. And they certainly don't have a handle on what kind of deferred maintenance exists in these cars, and if work has been done, how that benefits the value of the car.
Right.
So the reasons behind the current influx of Roadsters on the market are often speculated upon inaccurately. Despite fluctuations, these cars remain highly collectible, in our opinion. So the question of why so many Roadsters are for sale is in the news. Speculation is rampant, and most get it wrong. It is the law of supply and demand. It is unforgiving, it's very predictable, and it's playing itself out. The first thing to consider is that the Roadster buyers starting in 2007 were a unique demographic. They were daring early adopters, buying a technology largely unproven long-term. They were courageously buying from a company inches from bankruptcy. They were often well-heeled with disposable income and from an age group that was done raising families that needed a practical car, buying a fun and impractical car. Well, that same generation, folks, is now 16 years older. Some have health issues, back and knee surgeries, and can no longer do the Roadster wiggle to enter and leave the car. Sadly, sometimes widows and family are selling the cars. So the uptick in Roadsters currently for sale, we have a unique perspective on why sales are so high, since we ask every owner, what's your reason for selling? And let's post that in the description. And here are the reasons ranked by priority. 1, health. 2, death in the family. 3, moving to another country, relocating, downsizing, lost their job, whatever it is, a financial change. 4, downsizing, needing garage space. That's also a common one. And then the additional reasons that are not listed in the listing, but oftentimes shared during debriefing. Declining Tesla service centers and shipping costs to shops like ours. Remember, not every Tesla service center today has a Roadster knowledgeable technician or engineer.
Right.
Well, my question is, why would you want to send your Roadster to a shop that doesn't have any talent there to repair it? So what Tesla has done is they have begun to regionalize. They have trimmed the number of Tesla service centers that are willing to take a Tesla Roadster, and for good reason. 6, growing deferred maintenance as the cars age. Remember, these are 16-year-old cars, and even if you don't drive a car for 16 years, there are still parts that wear out. Things like rubber bushings that get old, that crack. You have shocks that have oil in them that deteriorate with age. And, various other things in the car that begin to deteriorate, the electronics especially. So growing and deferred maintenance as cars age is number 6. 7, growing replacement battery pack costs, which started at $29,000 plus tax. October 2nd of 2023 went to $40,000 plus tax. Now you're at $45,000. And, it's questionable in my mind as to whether Tesla is making money even at $40,000 based on the fact that these packs are hand assembled. You've got 6,831 connections on one side that have to be ultrasonically welded by hand. There are no robots involved. And the same quantity on the other side because you have 2 fusible links. And And then you have all of the hand assembly, placing each cell into the clamshells and then pouring the epoxy to the thermal potting compound, as they call it. It is a very labor intensive process. And bear in mind, we're using Lathrop, California labor, Silicon Valley labor,
Mm-hmm.
and leasing costs. I don't think Tesla owns the Lathrop facility yet. So all of these add to the costs of the batteries. So even at 40,000, this may be reviewed. And then number 8, concerns about the pending end of life for legacy battery packs. These packs were originally designed for 10 years. Everybody's pleasantly surprised we're going on 16. And by the way, they are going strong in every sense of the word. We just recovered a Roadster 2 weeks ago. It came in bricked. We then did the test driving and charging, and that car charged 174 miles during test driving in standard mode. That's probably 10 shy of where it charged brand new, but this was 16 years later.
Really impressive.
Yeah. So that is the 8th concern, is what's going to happen when this battery pack goes end of life. And we don't have any clear indications of how that's going to happen yet, unless you look at the first generation R80 packs. And we'll talk about that later in a podcast. We'll refer you to a movie or a video that talks at length about our engineering findings and our probes into what's happening to this first generation pack. So let me read you the rest of this. Interestingly, no seller has ever expressed a loss of love for their Roadster. No one that sells ever tells us, "I'm tired of the little beast, the thrill is gone." It's just the opposite. We sense that they are conflicted, since the first-gen Roadster is often a cherished member of the family, very much part of great memories, and parting is never easy. Instead, they often display a strong sentimental attachment to the car, making their decision to sell quite difficult. Our opinion is that there are some incredible buys right now, and auctions are not the place to sell these cars. Astute investors with a long-range view are snapping up these bargain basement-priced assets that will inevitably head north again as the owner turnover eventually resolves and the market again stabilizes.
You know, the good example of a car that was below value was the last one that sold on Bring a Trailer. $23,000 in deferred maintenance,
Almost 26.
almost $26,000 had already been taken care of. So the power electronics module being rebuilt, new shocks, I think it had new brakes, among other things. Almost all the deferred maintenance had been taken care of on that particular car.
Including all the thermal management.
Mm-hmm.
As these 1.5s age, there's a DC brush motor pump in there, which loses its ability to pump, and the GPM declines. There was the headlights were completely rebuilt. They were even upgraded to LED headlights, and the seats were reupholstered.
Yeah, so a tremendous amount of work to take care of those deferred maintenance items had already been done, and yet it went for $78,000.
Yeah.
So that's almost like a Roadster going for $48,000 or $50,000. Really, really low.
Exactly. And, talking about what's happening to Roadsters now in terms of deferred maintenance, brick Roadsters are quite common. We get on average a couple per week coming through our service center. And it's usually, if we catch it in time and the proper protocols are followed, the service plug is pulled, for example. It's a level 1 recovery, which is not that expensive. It's about $2,000. And and then the car can go back to the owner unless they decide to take care of some of the other deferred maintenance. That's what then drives the price up. There are also rodent issues. We're seeing an uptick in that. Depends on where you store your Roadster. And when you get rodent issues, there's no way for us to flat rate that repair because it's so insidious, it's so unpredictable, and it gets its tentacles into various parts of the car.
Right. Now, there was quite a discussion on the current Roadster that's up for sale on Bring a Trailer. Should we get into that a little bit?
Let me finish the knob portion because that's going to be a fun one. Someone actually said something to the effect of, don't drink the Gruber Kool-Aid. And I
Yeah.
want to dive into that. We're going to have fun with that one.
Okay, let's get to the non portion, and there
All right.
are some new comments that I'll read to you as well.
All right. Do you want to do the comments first?
Let's do
All right.
that. TikTok, VinVidCom. Good morning, gentlemen, he says.
Welcome.
Thank you for coming here. TikTok, Mauricio Diaz. Hello from Germany.
Guten Morgen or Guten Abend in this case.
He then asks, is there any news on Lucid? Their stock went down a bit. How is their plant in the Middle East and construction?
You know, the only information I have there is a large investment group that began dumping Lucid stock and began taking short positions. And that's the only information that I have. The most recent news, of course, is the PIF fund throwing another $1 or so, $1.5 billion at the company.
Right. The PIF fund had done that. I've seen the stock head down toward the $3 range. I mean, it seems to have met a lot of downward resistance at that $3 range. It's not going much below that, and it's a startup stock. It's been very volatile.
Yeah.
So to hear an investment fund taking a short position on it, okay, that would help drive it down a little bit. Have not heard anything beyond the announcement earlier this year that the construction is ramping up in the Saudi Arabia. We have to kind of depend on the press there.
Yeah. Although the Gravity is beginning to look much more viable, there's actually a test vehicle that Pete Rawlinson was driving around. There are a lot of videos coming out of the Casa Grande facility showing the production capacity, the assembly lines, and all of that. So, and by the end of this year, I understand that the Gravity will begin to be released, and that should give the stock a healthy kick.
It should. They've still got, end of November as the tentative release date for it, and it seems to be progressing as would be expected. So once that comes out, if it gets the kind of rave reviews that the Lucid Air got, I think there is a good chance that you're going to see a spike in the stock price of Lucid.
All right, Jesse, we've got a folder out here. It's called Knob, Free Knob. There we go. I'm going to show you a picture, and those of you that own Roadsters, 20% of you will say, yeah, that's what mine looks like. And once it pops up here, you'll see. What we're talking about here is the console dimmer knob that on a 1.5 is directly below the trunk release button. And this knob, and I'm holding one up here, this is what it looks like. This is the silk screen on it. And as you can see, the construction is plastic.
You gotta hold it closer to you.
Oh, closer to me. All right.
Yeah, there you go.
There
Now
you
your
go.
hand disappears.
You know, you guys can't see it. We'll have a zoom camera one of these days, but we'll show you ample pictures. It's thin plastic is the problem. So do we have a picture of that? There we go. Yeah. So what you'll see is a blue shaft. That is a potentiometer shaft. It's like a volume control on your, stereo equipment. And this is typically what they look like. When these knobs get compromised, they initially crack so that it no longer rides on that D shaft, and then eventually falls off, and you may not realize it because you sucked it up with a vacuum cleaner at the car wash.
Oh, sure.
So then you drive around with this blue shaft sticking out. So what we decided was we have a number of these knobs. These are black, anodized, and they're billet aluminum, which means solid metal versus plastic. And what we offer to the community, we send out a large mailer. We'll give you a free knob. Just tell us if you need one. So for those of you that didn't get the mailer or didn't get the email, feel free to contact us at ev@gruber.com. It's completely free. We'll send it out to you, and you can replace that knob, and this knob will outlast your car.
Definitely. Now, do we have pictures of the new knob?
We do.
As well?
Let's go to B, Jesse. B is going to show you what happens, and that's probably a much better version than me trying to hold up the knob. Do you see those cracks right there?
I sure do.
That then extends the D portion, and there's also a metal clip that falls out, which is missing, which is a retainer. And then picture C shows you the knob that we replace it with. We send you a little Allen tool so that you can tighten it down on that potentiometer shaft. And from that point forward, you're not going to have any more exposed dimmer potentiometer shaft. That's C, Jesse. There we go. Okay. And the final picture, oh, and by the way, this is made in USA, which in our production group is an important concept with a lot of customers, especially the federal customers.
Oh yes, and Gruber Communications. That is part of what drives our business. Is made in the USA.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Yeah.
For the people on Instagram, we don't have our side view cameras, so you will want to go to TikTok or YouTube, Facebook. You'll be able to see it better.
Okay, and then the final image, Jesse, is D. And that shows the knob in place, and there you go. There's your permanent knob now. So again, any of you interested, ev@gruber.com, just tell us that you want one. Give us your address. Give us your VIN if you like, and we will send that out to you. And so far, it looks like we've got about 90 or so people that have taken advantage of this, and there's still more coming in each week.
Fantastic.
All right. Another thing that came, that a car came in, if we go to the coolant tank, Jesse, let's go to picture A. Roadsters that come into our service center initially get a bath. And, it's whether they need it or not, because we want to make sure that they're gleaming and shining inside the service center. This particular Roadster came in, and I'll show you the outside here in a moment, but if you notice that coolant tank, that was a repair that was done. And fundamentally, these were not available until about 9 months ago or so, when we finally found a vendor, the original vendor that makes these, and we ordered a bunch of them and have them in stock. Let's go to picture B, Jesse, and then you can see the car that this came in with. They usually don't look this rough. This one was sitting outside somewhere, I think at a service center. It's got some really cool wheels if you look at that. Those have been powder coated.
I like the wheels, but you're right. That's a pretty rough look.
The next picture, C, we happen to have another black Roadster leaving at the same time this came in, and you can see the difference. And that black one to the right is going to look as good as the one on the left there. Picture D, Jesse, is the coolant tank that we have available. If you need one of these, just contact us or go to our e-store. Gruber Motors, there's a shop button there, and you can see a lot of this type of product out there. And these coolant tanks actually have been surprisingly resilient. It is a softer type of a polyethylene. And you would think that it would get brittle and, old as it ages, but they've been pretty much intact unless you damage it by dropping something on it. And that's what I would guess would have happened to that one that we saw earlier.
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, Maurizio Diaz in Germany says, thank you for the info. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
And then Niels has joined us from the Beyond Danish Genome Institute. He said, doesn't the price drop simply reflect, 1, aging batteries, 2, growing difference between Roadster range and today's alternative? And if so, the drops will continue. What we find, Niels, is that people have pretty much reconciled themselves in the EV world to the notion that batteries are going to have to be replaced at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that that's the main driving force behind the Roadsters being sold. The second part of that is a first-generation Roadster is a very unique vehicle. People that bought it originally immediately fell into the notion that this was going to be collectible because it was the first electric car of any consequence. Remember in 1907 in New York, they had electric taxi cabs. Well, no one really considers that the first generation of EVs.
Right.
But this Lotus Elise, this sporty two-seater, this high-performing car that at the time it was released was embarrassing Lamborghinis and Ferraris, is in a whole different league.
I definitely agree. And Niels, what we've seen with our customer base is, early on it was almost completely individual owners, wealthier people who can afford to have this car, and in more recent years, we've seen a shift. It's now we have a pretty healthy mix of people who are using the car as either their joyride car or in some cases their daily commuter, and people who are collecting.
Hmm.
There are quite a few people who come to us, whether it's for buying and selling, or whether it's for storing, whether it's for or whether it's for getting the cars repaired and restored, that make it so that these cars are being collectible now. And so the collectability kind of flies in the face a little bit of the natural logical sequence of, well, the battery is getting old, it's going to have to be replaced, so the car value is going to go down.
Hmm. So at this point, do we want to jump, since we're still talking about valuation, to VIN number 66, that other signature car that's on Bring a Trailer that was up to $69,000 the last time I checked, and it is going to close tomorrow at auction. And it's kind of going the same valuation trend as VIN number 48 did.
It is kind of, yeah, I can't wait. I've been looking forward to this part of the conversation.
So it all started with a post on Bring a Trailer where we were asked, after, of course, what's the CAC? How do we pull it? That type of thing. That's quite common on Bring a Trailer. And again, if Bring a Trailer was EV savvy, they would realize every single Tesla Roadster for sale is going to need a calculated amp hour capacity reading, because that's how buyers determine the barometer and health of the battery.
Right.
So I typically post our newsletter there telling them how to do that, and they're always grateful. All right. So then a question was raised, and I said something about there is a current glut of Roadsters right now in terms of valuation. And so one of the comments from one of the people on Bring a Trailer was, given what Gruber said about the age of owners contributing to today's glut, may I ask what your age is? And he was talking about one of the bidders here.
Yes.
All right. Well, all right. You could probably find that humorous or not. Well, it turns out that someone else commented then and said, really, there are over 1 million subscribers on Bring a Trailer. And as a 45-year veteran of classic and collectible car auctions, don't drink the Gruber Kool-Aid. He has not been through enough classic auto sales cycles to have a clue. Well, first of all, Sweet Leon is his name. I don't know you. You don't know me. You don't know my history, and you have no clue who you're talking to. First of all, I have been involved in cars for over 40 years. It has been a passion since I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I began repairing and restoring cars while in high school. I have attended and been a function at the Cars and Coffees here in the state of Arizona, the supercar events, have been restoring Mopars for many years, and have been a member of the Ferrari Club, had a Ferrari for 23 years, been involved in the Pebble Beach, the Monterey shows, all of that, and been watching the sales of exotic cars very carefully for many, many decades. So I take issue with the fact that I don't have a clue. I think that you probably should contact me and we can compare notes and become friends, because we seem to share the same interests. All right, so then we get another comment here. And this was from contributing to today's glut. Okay. What are your thoughts, by the way? You had some very specific thoughts about this.
Absolutely. You know, well, to me, one of the first thoughts I have is that if you look at the history of the Roadsters that we have had come through our shop since 2018, we'll say, we have serviced probably somewhere around 40% of the worldwide market on Roadsters.
U.S. market, yes.
Well, I would even go so far as to say
Global,
the worldwide global market. There are about 2,000 Roadsters in the world, and I would guess that we have serviced somewhere between 800 and 1,000 of those Roadsters in the last 6 years. That is a statistically significant portion of those Roadsters. We do have enough of a handle on the Tesla Roadster market to understand if there is a trend that's specific to the Tesla Roadsters. There are other things about the uniqueness of the Roadsters. You've already mentioned it. It's the first production electric car that was made in our lifetimes that has enough range to be considered useful. No disrespect to the Nissan Leaf, it is a fine little car. It was a city commuter. It had at most between 80 and 100 miles of range. This car had enough range, even today, to be able to actually take it on some sort of a trip. Or to take it around and drive to, here we are in a metro area that's flat. We can go drive it up into the mountains and have some fun with it because it's got enough range to be able to do that. This is the first car that's ever had that kind of capability. So when we say the Glut is for these specific reasons, it's because we have talked to enough owners to understand that the Glut is for these specific reasons.
Yeah. And by the way, I was in error. It was Scott Ailes that made this comment, not Sweet Leon.
Okay.
So yeah, Scott Ailes. And in all fairness to Scott, he's been involved, it sounds like, in the car community for 45 years. But that's the broader car community. What we're talking about now is a very specific vehicle, which is Tesla Roadsters. And I would challenge anybody that, if there's anybody that has more expertise on a Tesla Roadster than us.
Yeah, there are enough things about the Tesla Roadster. Just the fact that it's an electric car really sets it apart from the wider community quite a bit. But the corresponding, it's the 4 production years, the 2,000 total that are still out there in the world. Those are all things that do kind of help set the Tesla Roadster apart from the wider car community. Huge respect for Scott. I think he's probably on as far as the wider classic car community. There's going to be a market up and down for that, but you can just go to Barrett Jackson Auctions, take a look at what they're doing for their classic cars, and you see that the wider classic car values did not see the same kind of decline in 2024 that we're seeing in Roadsters.
Right.
So what it looks like is that we have something that's very specific to Roadsters. Now, there are 2 comments that have come in on Bring a Trailer since we've started our podcast. The first EV one. First one I'm gonna say, and this will be for you to react to. I believe the value of the Tesla Roadster is going to be driven by Tesla enthusiasts, not traditional collectors and automotive enthusiasts. It'll be more closely aligned to collectibles like the first Apple computer or the iPod or other early tech products. Sure, there are going to be car collectors who are interested, but they're not always going to be the ones that are driving the market value. I have a Signature 250. It's stateside, and I love driving it, but part of me thinks in 20 years, I'll wish that I hadn't, with a little smiley face on the end.
And this is from Taylor Ritchie, and he does make a good point. The broader car community, collector community, is barely warming up to EVs. A good example of that was the earlier podcast. We had a car event out at the Martin Museum, which is kind of like the local Peterson Museum, which had 170 ICE cars in it and 1 EV, most recent purchase, which was a Tesla Model S 2012 Signature 8 car. And they were very excited about that and very confused. What do we do? How do we treat it? How do we maintain it? All those things. So yeah, I think that Taylor Ritchie makes a good point that the people that are going to continue to be interested in the Roadster may not be the broader car community because they haven't really warmed up to EVs yet or understand the significance of the first EV.
Well, just the fact that the Roadster, which is only 16 years old, is collecting so much interest from the automotive enthusiast and collector community now is a misnomer itself. Usually, it takes somewhere between 30 and 60 years for these cars to go collectible.
Right.
And the Roadster's doing it after 16. The next one, of course, is the answer from Greenline.
Greenline, yeah. And by the way, he bids all the time on these cars.
Yes.
What I know about him just from these posts is he owns 6 Tesla Roadsters. I think he's Florida-based, and he definitely is knowledgeable.
Yes.
But he was asked, what is your age?
That's right. So he's the one that was asked, what is your age? And his answer, my age, let's just say it's been a while since I've been carded while trying to order a drink at the bar.
Okay, good answer, Green.
He says, I hope to enjoy my collection of cars in good health, however, for many decades to come.
Okay.
So he dittos Scott Ailes' comments.
Yeah.
He's saying for most car collectors, the public only sees a fraction of their public hold in transactions. He says, I've tried to support and purchase Roadsters over the years at both ends, both in the highs and the lows. The talking heads, I'm sure that he would include us amongst those, believe that these Roadsters are below fair market values and should step in and actively bid to own the cars. He says, instead, I see them spreading fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Is there a glut? Yeah, there is a huge multi-year supply of Roadsters for sale on the, as he quotes it, free listing services. You know of any free Roadster listing services other than ours?
None whatsoever.
No. So he's talking about the Gruber Roadster service. What he does also say is that the owners are not realistic in their asking price compared to current fair market value. I would absolutely agree with that in at least some of the cases. Look at your number 5 Roadster. You love that Roadster. You have that Roadster. You intend really to have it probably for a few years, if not longer. But for the right price, you'd be willing to part with it.
Correct.
So you put it up there at what you think would be a fair price.
And the people selling the Roadsters on our Roadster matchmaking site typically ask for valuation advice. And the first thing that I usually say is start a little higher than what you're expecting to get paid for that car.
Yeah.
Everybody likes a bargain, and if they can work you down a bit, they're happier. And that was the very advice in 2021 that took the Roadsters from 50K up to 130K.
Yes.
Because every single time I said that, the cars were selling for more each time, and they climbed up.
That's exactly right. So the fact that we have 40 cars sitting out there for sale, it doesn't mean that they're all going to get the prices that are listed there.
Right.
I can, with some confidence, say, I believe that we are selling more cars and moving more volume through this matchmaking service. And it's not us selling the cars, it's the buyers and sellers that are getting together. But we're seeing more volume of cars move than bring a trailer. I'm pretty confident in saying that. And so we get some clue as to the prices on some cars. In other cases, we get nothing more than the owner coming to us and say, thank you for the listing service. My car is sold. You can take it down. And they don't tell us anything else beyond that.
Right. And as far as pricing, they start high. And since we turn these sellers over to the buyers, if you have a price in mind that you feel more comfortable with, I don't expect anyone that we give the information, the seller information to lowball these sellers.
Right.
But be reasonable. It's not a fixed and firm price. And oftentimes the sellers on our matchmaking site will come back after a month or two and say, it's not moving. We're not getting the inquiries that I would like. Let's lower the price. One of them got lowered 3 times. And then it got so low, it got snapped up when I sent it out to the pre-qualified buyers. By the way, there's another concept. We have 460 or so pre-qualified Roadster buyers that are interested and serious about buying Roadsters. They have been 100% vetted. We know most of these people. We don't have tire kickers. We don't have people that want to simply flip cars, or the scammers overseas in the United States. What we do when we get a listing, if it's here, we even take pictures of it for you. Free. Again, free. We then post the car, and it comes up for sale. But before we advertise it on social media, it goes to this pre-qualified buyer list for 24 hours. 24 hours. Let me do it. There we go. And what happens then is sometimes the cars sell before they even get to social media because somebody's looking for that very low mileage, lightning green 2.5, Roadster.
Yes. Now, Scott Ailes had said on his comments, unless said persons, he didn't refer to us by name, but
who could that be, do you suppose?
He's referring to Gruber Motors, I think.
Be more clear the next time, Scott.
Officially changed to nonprofit. Hearing them present market value insights and buyer-seller demographics and then marketing solutions for free must be considered for personal gain. Do you have any comments for that one?
Well, you're our CFO. Is there any gain, any profit any personal gain in any of this Roadster matchmaking site that we do.
There is none in the Roadster matchmaking site. I will disclose there is a certain percentage of the customers who see us and work with us in the tech support on the Roadster matchmaking site and then choose to come to us after they have purchased their Roadster for business services. That is to our benefit. Absolutely. We're making money in that case. But there is never any kind of pressure or solicitation on our part of those Roadster owners. We have simply provided the information as a free service. And B, we have never written any kind of contract that says if you buy a Roadster, you have to come to us. There are plenty of people that have said, thank you for listing the Roadster. I've sold it or I bought it and I'm going my own way. Some of them actually take the Roadster and move it up to our competition and have the competition work on it. Okay, that's fine because we're doing this as a free service.
Right.
We are not making any money on this service.
And when I'm asked oftentimes, why do you do it for free? And I tell them the same thing each time. We make friends and we support the community.
That's right.
And we also do not restrict the people that list cars on our site to advertising it on other sites or locally. We don't have any rules and regulations. If you wanted to list on our site and then list it on Bring a Trailer, we're not going to have any heartache over that, but I think Bring a Trailer will.
Bring a Trailer might ask them to take it down from our site if we do that.
Yeah. So it's one of the few things in life that are free, and we're proud and happy to offer it. And you can probably tell that I get a bit annoyed when any of that is attacked. What was the last attack? We're creating the glut with the Roadster matchmaking site.
Oh, yes.
And what was the analogy that you gave then?
It's the opposite. It's supply and demand. If you have a high supply, the way to solve a high supply problem is to go out and advertise to create demand. And that's what we're doing with the matchmaking service. So it's the opposite of what we were being accused of.
And the analogy you gave that I loved, you might have forgotten, was
I might have.
It's like a dating service being held accountable for single people.
Oh, yes, that's right. I remember that now. Yes.
That was probably my favorite.
We have a few comments again. TikTok, political dissident. He says, calculating EV appeal is a lot like calculating jury duty average intellect.
Oh, my God.
That's great.
TikTok. Imanjin, he says, are you hiring? Oh, perfect question. Yes, we just talked about it this morning. We're going to release a video to encourage more recruitment at Gruber Motor Company. We're looking for engineers, technicians, mechanics. And please feel free to apply. Send your resume to ev@gruber.com.
Mm-hmm. Again, political dissident on TikTok. He says, I saw a 30-minute YouTube video of a guy ranting about how he couldn't pin 10 different owners down to a charge cost.
Really? Okay.
And then Neil's on YouTube asked another good question, as he usually does. Is a paid health check an optional part of the matchmaking service?
A paid health check?
No, you pay your mechanic to do a once-over on the car and before you put your car up for sale.
You know, we do that free, by the way, the initial analysis as a vehicle comes in. And then we have recommended services, which then outlines the areas, the problems that we found in the car. And, you're right. It's free up front, but then after the services are recommended, there is revenue for us. So that's one of the reasons that we offer all of these free things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, in business, it can't be 100% free because you'd go out of business unless you were a nonprofit and you had private funding
to
support that.
Right.
Wait a minute, that sounds like the government, doesn't it?
Well, kind of. My closing comment on this Bring a Trailer thing is I would love to see the person trying to sell this Roadster be able to get at least as much value as he's looking for.
Yeah.
Good luck to him. Wish them nothing but the best. And I hope that whoever buys the Roadster is equally as happy.
Yeah. And it will be an interesting test case because number 56, signature 56, and remember, these are $150,000 to $170,000 cars in today's market. It'll be interesting to see if we have a disappointed seller and an ecstatic buyer, or something like you mentioned, something more balanced.
Yeah.
Well, we've come to the end, I think, of our Tesla Roadster podcast. It was a fun one this morning.
It was fun today.
And we'll be back next week for another edition of the Tesla Roadster podcast. I'm Pete Gruber. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm Mark Schaffner.